let's go ahead and get to the main story, and this is going to be partnered with the actual show recap. So the show recap is going to be a little bit different because I'm going to have to do the main event first because I have a lot of thoughts on the main event, because the main event dives into really what our top story is, and that is the main event of Bound for Glory is set. We have Joe Hendry taking on, you guessed it, Nick Nemeth. So our prayers have been answered. There was a lot of people thinking, and me included, that TNA was going to blow this whole deal and put Frankie Kazarian in the main event of Bound for Glory. And now, whether or not that was their plan ever, I talked to Paul Fontaine, and Paul Fontaine watches every week. And he was thinking that he had thought earlier this year that they were always leading to Frankie, just by the way they were telling the stories and the way they were pushing Frankie, specifically like Frankie beating Joe against all odds, and then of course the elimination, and then the way they've really protected Frankie. Now, he did get pinned at Slammiversary in the main event, and I think that was their way of giving him a main event. I really do. I think he was, I don't want to say that he was promised a main event run or a title shot, but they were really keeping him strong, and they were building him up for a title shot. And then they got him in the main event Slammiversary. Of course, it was the 6-way, and he was in the last two. He ended up getting pinned by Nick Nemeth, and then he had not lost since then. They've been keeping him strong, and so I think it would have been a reasonable assumption to think that Frankie was probably going to be one, like, if Joe Hendry had not gotten hot the way that he did, if he didn't get over the way that he did, I think one would safely assume that it was TNA's plan. The planned main event that they had set out earlier this year was Nick Nemeth versus Frankie Kazarian. I think Nick Nemeth was always going to be in the main event. He was in the main event. He closed out the show at Hard to Kill. He was in the main event at Rebellion. He was in the main event at Slammiversary. I think he was always going to be in the main event of Bound for Glory, no matter what. And they probably had Joe Hendry versus Josh Alexander earmarked for kind of like the co-main type of grudge match type of slot. But because Joe Hendry got so hot, they had to fast track that Hendry Alexander feud and do it at Victory Road because they needed to push Hendry into the main event. Now, this is me spitballing. Maybe this was their plan all along. I don't know. But Joe Hendry admittedly said that because he got so hot, they had to kind of redo all of their plans for Slammiversary and for their booking throughout the year. He had said that on a interview that he had done. So, but. So we get the main event. Now, we'll start there. Frankie Kazarian versus Joe Hendry in the main event. I thought this match was okay. I didn't love the match because I just felt like it was Frankie and Joe Hendry taking turns pandering to the audience. And at no point, there's actual heat there. At no point did it really seem like they were wanting to fight each other. It was just like them. Like Joe Hendry would be down and Frankie would pander, and then Joe would get back up and then he would pander. It was just very much like a 1980s WWE match where they're just taking turns, looking and kind of talking to the audience. It didn't seem like two guys hating each other, really desperate for a title shot. And then Frankie used the brass knucks, the same move that he basically, he did the Tito Santana, Macho Man Randy Savage, won it against all odds. But in the same fashion, he hit Joe Hendry and actually pinned Joe Hendry. But here's the problem, and I talked to you guys about it last week. They never connected the dots with Against All Odds. They redid the finish from Against All Odds, which was designed to get the fans worried and designed to get the fans like, oh my God, and then swerve them there at the end with Santino coming out and doing the whole thing. And it worked to an extent to the live audience, but the TV audience, they neglected because they never mentioned what happened at Against All Odds. That should have been the story leading into it. They should have had video package as a video package. That should have been part of the promo last week. Hey, I got you at Against All Odds. And Joe Henry's like, yeah, you got me at Against All Odds, but you cheated, and you're not going to get away with it this time. Right. And then they should have, like Santino should have been like, that should have been part of the story going into it. But they never got there. And and for the life of me, I can't understand why. Like, why you wouldn't talk about it at least. Knowing that that's how you were going to end the match, was you were going to tease the finish from Against All Odds, and then Santino was going to come out and restart the match. So I thought that was a big fail. Now, the match wasn't bad. It wasn't, because you can't say the match is bad when the crowd is going as crazy as they were, and the crowd was going crazy. So at the end of the day, everything they did worked. But I'm saying, for my taste, I wish there would have been some heat there, and two guys fighting for a title shot versus two guys taking turns pandering to the audience. It just seemed like the whole match was kind of bullshit. Now I gotta admit, I did like the Puss in Boots line, and I thought that the Puss in Boots line got over with the crowd, and they were chanting Puss in Boots at Frankie. And so that's probably going to be a chant for him going forward. And you got to know that he loves that, because he's a heel, and you want to get the crowd invested into you. And so they're probably going to keep that going. Because look, he's a mid-card heel. He's not a main event heel. He's a very good wrestler, though. Very good. I love Frankie. And everybody's like, Mike, why are you so tough on Frankie? I'm not tough on Frankie. I'm just kind of realistic as to where he's at in his career. I think he is, middle to co-main. Every once in a while can headline TV and do have really good matches. And he can still have really good matches. I think that's an awesome guy to have in your company. He's a very reliable talent. He's a good promo. I thought they missed the mark in the main event for my personal taste. Now, I say they missed the mark to me. Okay. They didn't miss the mark with the live audience. They didn't. So, I mean, two things can be true at the same time. Right? Two things can be true at the same time. So, but yes, so they get through the match, and Joe Hendry grabs the microphone before the match gets started, and he said he's going to introduce Frankie. He tells Frankie Kazarian not to worry and assures him he'll give him an introduction worthy of a title contender. He introduces him as the winner of the Antonio Banderas lookalike contest. He is the dad from Spy Kids. That gets a little bit of a pop. But then he said he is Puss in Boots, the fans go crazy. Because he is wearing boots, and they want to call him a pussy. So but you can say Puss in Boots, and kind of now we all know exactly what you're trying to say. And so that the crowd went crazy. And I was like, okay, that's very much like Cheeseball Joe. And we have Cheeseball Mike Bailey, but now we have Cheeseball Joe Hendry too. Said get the Puss in Boots, and I was like, fuck, that actually worked. So you can't really be mad at it. Now, I don't like the walking wiener thing, because I think Josh Alexander should be a serious heel. But Frankie's kind of let's just say he's a comedy heel. He's a funny heel. Like the whole King of TNA thing, it's kind of funny, right? It's there to be made fun of. And so I think that works. So you have to switch up your material, your shtick, depending on the opponent. Him versus Josh Alexander should have been a bit more serious. But yeah, Puss in Boots, that got over. So let's but the crowd was really into Joe the whole time. They really were. And I thought Kazarian did a good job of getting heat. So let's see. Hendry takes over and then launches Kazarian out to the floor. Hendry heads out after him, and he hoists Kazarian up and holds him for a stalled suplex on the floor. Kazarian reaches into his bag and slides a set of brass knucks onto his hand while the referee is dealing with Hendry in the ring. Hendry leans through the ropes to grab Kazarian, and Kazarian blasts Hendry with the brass knucks. He knocks him out, quickly rolls into the ring, covers him for the win. Kazarian is announced as the winner, and his music plays. However, as he is celebrating, Nick Nemeth stands up from his chair at the commentary desk. He grabs the brass knucks that Kazarian used and shows them to the referee. He explains what happened, and the referee restarts the match. Well, that's not exactly what happened, recapper. He explains what happened. A second referee then comes out. They have another female referee in this company. She's very good. I've actually been impressed by what she does. I think Daniel Spencer is the lead guy there, and I think he might have a hand in recruiting these referees. And I think this female one that he's got, very good. Can't remember her name, but she's very good. She comes out, she explains it, and then Santino's music hits. He comes out and he restarts the match. And then almost immediately, Hendry hits the standing ovation and gets the victory, and the crowd went crazy for it. And that's how they go off the air. I do want to make mention of something that I thought was pretty good, that I almost guarantee. I don't know if it's actually going to make it into the storyline, but Nick Nemeth there's a reason why Nick Nemeth's been around at a top level for 20 years. It's because he knows what he's doing. And during while he was on commentary, he kept calling Joe Hendry the kid. So yeah, this kid is great. We got to get behind the kid. Good move by the kid. He was saying that. And then last week when he was in the ring, he said, "Hey, you're doing a great job, kid. We're all counting on you." It's very much like a way to talk down to somebody. And that's definitely for a reason. And I think that's going to be the heat between these two, is Nick Nemeth, treating Joe Hendry like he's just some kid, like some Johnny come lately, some kid that just got over, when in fact he's like 33 years old and has been around for 10, 15 years at this point. but I think that's going to be the heat between these two, and how they thread the needle and be able to tell the story without turning Nick Nemeth heel is going to be something to watch for. But I thought that was what he did there was pretty good. Just subtle type of jabs at Joe, and he can maybe say like unintentional, but he really feels that way. And Joe Hendry should not want to be called kid. He absolutely shouldn't. I hate it. I'm 41. Somebody calls me a kid. It pisses me off, especially if they're doing it into like a pedantic type of way. But I thought that was good. Billy says woman ref is Paige. I'm not pronouncing that last name, but we'll just call her Paige. She comes from NXT and she's very good. I do not recognize her one bit, but I've been seeing her on TNA shows lately, and yes, she is very good. And I'm glad that they got her. I'm glad that they gave her a shot here. So yes, the main event of Bound for Glory is set. I wrote about it. on Patreon. I actually wrote about it a week ago, but I just re-released it on Friday morning for the free tier of the Patreon. I condensed it because I had a bunch of other stuff in there too, so I condensed it. So looking ahead to Bound for Glory, it's currently shaping up to be the biggest U.S. event of the year for TNA. The event, so definitely on the road to outselling Victory Road. So the event is currently set up for 22,328. This is from Dobby. 772 floor seats and 1,556 general admission, with already 85% of the floor seats sold. And one would safely assume that that there's a good percentage of the GA sold, but we cannot track the GA. And I should caveat that we did the same thing for Victory Road. We had a similar count for Victory Road. I think the count was like 1,800. And well, they ended up opening more seats, but you were not able to track that. And so they ended up selling 2,100 seats for Victory Road. So, I mean, what we have right now as far as countable seats is 2,300. But that's a pretty big venue, and they could, if they do get to the point, they could probably open it up to more. So the show is on track to surpass Victory Road, meaning it'll likely have the largest U.S. attendance and gate of the year. So here's what the card looks like so far. So I'm going to go over the Bound for Glory card, and then I'm going to finish the recap of TNA Impact. Okay. Nick Nemeth versus Joe Hendry for the main event. Oh, man, I got a typo here. I put Joe Hendry. That's funny. I need to get the H in there. Monsters Ball PCO versus Mid Cardona. And then it looks like, here's my predictions based off of what I'm seeing on the show. Not from inside information, just from what I'm seeing on the show. Jordan Grace versus Masha Slamovich for the Knockouts title. The System versus the Hardys versus ABC for the tag team titles, and we saw that play out. Santana versus Moose, which I think is a given. And then, of course, the Call Your Shot Gauntlet. So, and I'm sure that on the pre-show, we'll have a Hall of Fame. We'll have a Knockouts tag title match, which hopefully we get Rosemary and Spooky Chew in there. which is what it looked like. And then Heather Reckless and Ash by Elegance versus Spitfire. That's just a guess, but that's probably like a pre-show deal. And so more announcements coming soon. All right. Lucha says lots of TNA news coming to Fightful Select per SRS 30 seconds. Okay. So I'm going to stay on the air for a little bit longer this morning. Hopefully I can get that. But sometimes when he says soon, it's not until like later in the day. So I will be tracking it. So let's get to this Impact recap. All right. Jordynne Grace with mystery partner Sol Ruca defeated. Well, they did, but it was a schmoz. Rosemary and your favorite and my favorite. She's the girl of your nightmares. Rock and roll. The sleep demon. Spooky Chew.
Rock and roll, spooky chew. Dreams will come and haunt you too. Rock and roll.
This is the greatest weapon.
She's a girl of your nightmare. She's coming for you.
All right, sorry. I got to get into my gimmicks. Got to do my gimmicks. But yes, Sol Ruca and Jordynne Grace defeated by disqualification Wendy Chu and Rosemary. I thought they were having a good match. Now, I typically don't like schmoz finishes, but I thought the way they did this, I was like, okay, I understand why they did it, and it was a good idea. So Ruca hits a wild moonsault to the floor, which is played up by the Juggernaut diving through the ropes for a ring to floor splash of her own. In the ring, the bell finally sounds, and it is Ruca and Rosemary kicking things off for their respective teams. Rosemary does a good job establishing the early offensive lead and then tags in Chu. Chu picks up where Rosemary left off, taking it to Ruca and keeping the high flyer grounded. The two continue to utilize frequent tags while keeping Ruca on their side of the ring and far away from the much-needed tag. Ruca finally takes over and hits her. Always fun to watch. Soul Snatchers. That's one of my favorite moves in all of pro wrestling right now. It's a bit ridiculous, but I really dig it. I think like Sol Ruca is going to be a WrestleMania main eventer on the women's side. Maybe not like tippy top main event, but like she's going to be a big time star in WWE. She really is. She's got the look. She's got the talent. She's putting it all together. She's very young. She's very new. And I think she's already really pretty good. And I thought she was really impressive in this match. And as far as like star quality, she came across like the biggest star in the match to me. She really did. And she's but Jordynne Grace came across as the best wrestler. But I thought the one with the most star power in the match to me was Sol Ruca. I think WWE has a winner on their hands. She's got everything. And she's like tall, looks great, just super athletic, can do all the moves. Once she puts it all together, man, they got a freaking megastar on their hands, I think. Now, promos, I don't know yet. We'll see if she can promo, but as far as in the ring and everything else, like I think they got they got a girl. But Ruca finally takes over, hits the Soul Snatcher. Grace goes for a Juggernaut driver to follow up. But before they can pick up the win, Tasha Steelz attacks the TNA Knockouts champion. And then Masha Slamovich gets the big, heroes, save the day. So they're really building up Masha, which I think is smart. I thought they did a great job building her up as a star last week, and they kept that going this week. They hit her theme song, had her run in, and they had her save Jordynne Grace. So we're going to get another babyface match at Bound for Glory. So it's going to be some the main and co-main are going to be all babyface matches. But I'm going to keep monitoring the chat to see if something comes up with Sean Ross Sapp. Let's see. Yep. Okay, nothing there. So I do like the 6-woman KO tag match it's set up. Who knows when they're actually going to get to it now? Yeah. All right. Backstage, Gia Miller tells Frankie Kazarian, who asks if she is down with the King. He tells her the answer for her, which is yes. He asks if she is a believer of Joe Hendry again. He tells the answer for her, which is no. He vows to beat Hendry tonight. Well, he doesn't. All right. Now let's get to John Gresham versus Loretto Kid. I thought this was a good technical wrestling, like mixture between technical wrestling and lucha libre. Unfortunately, neither guy is over. So it was like two guys doing an exhibition that was very fun to watch, but nobody cared. It was a good match. Don't get me wrong, like Jonathan Gresham's great, Laredo Kid's great, but they've beaten Laredo Kid so badly, like nobody cares about him. He's dead. And it was in San Antonio, and he was trying his best to get some chance. And I think they got behind him a little bit because he was doing some stuff in Spanish, and so he was like, really, tapping into that market. But like you're just watching on TV, and it's like, who cares who wins this match? It's like neither guy's over, and I'm a fan of both guys, but it's just a sad state of affairs. And Gresham is teasing, going back to evil Gresham. He was teasing it during the match. I think at one point he was like talking about thinking he was going to rip the mask off, and he's like, "Oh no, that's too evil. I got to stop my evilness." And so he gave up on being evil. All right, hold on. So he gave up on being evil. So there you go. But the match was pretty good. I did like the match. Jonathan Gresham, of course, because he's wrestling Laredo Kid, gets the victory there. But it was a good match. He actually Gresham takes it back, hits the moonsault before going back to work on the knees of the Kid. He repeatedly smashed his Kid's knee into the mat over and over again until the Kid tapped out. So it was a weird tap out, but Jonathan Gresham does a good job of like switching up the finishes for his match. Backstage, Mike Santana shown with a chain in hand. They don't seem to get it, but they will now. And he went into the Systems locker room, and then he shut the door. The camera stayed outside and could listen in as the System was getting their asses kicked. And then we had a commercial. And we come back with probably the best match. Not even probably. I think absolutely the best match of the night. Our next division showcase, as BQ would say. Zachary Wentz and the ABC defeat Leon Slater, Kushida, and Cheeseball Mike Bailey. Sorry, BQ, I am stealing Cheeseball. That is now mine. It is, consider it stolen, bro. But he's one of my favorite wrestlers, but he is a Cheeseball. So everyone ends up in the ring. There's a ton of high spots, all kinds of stuff going on, including an amazing. Leon Slater hit his amazing flippy doodah over the ring post to the outside, landing on his feet. I think Leon Slater is going to be the next Will Ospreay. And I'm not just saying that because they're from the same country, but take a look at what they're doing. Does like high flying moves, but he's like a big guy. He's like 6'2". He can do all the high flying stuff, but he's like a big dude. And I think he has great matches. He's got charisma. I think once he puts it all together, he's going to be the next Will Ospreay. Like we're seeing that with Kyle Fletcher right now. I think Leon Slater's right there with him. Like he's young, so once he gets some more time under his belt, I think they really need to start getting behind the Slater kid now. He's getting his ass kicked a lot, which happens when you're young. I think sooner rather than later, they need to start the build for him to take over this X division. And then they need to make sure that the X division is younger going forward. Not that I hate old guys in the division. I think that once you get to a certain age, you probably need to move on to that's why they need that other mid-card heavyweight title. But I think that like these under 30 cats, and especially Leon Slater, who's like 22, like that's where this division needs to go. That's like in my head, that's the X division to me. He's great, but he ended up getting a UFO cutter on him by Wentz and got the victory there. So they're going to keep Wentz strong. Backstage, we got an awful segment with Hammerstone, Jake something, and they're doing a workout. Hammerstone's growling at Jake, and then Diener comes in, wants to talk to something, his cousin, and it was just the whole thing falls apart. But Diener accepts the challenge from Hammerstone. I think it ends up on Explosion. No one's going to watch it. Okay. All right. Let's get to Lei Ying Lee, the former Xia Li, also known as Xia Zhao, but she has completely changed her Twitter profile to Lei Ying Lee. The whole gimmick is now Lei Ying Lee. And the entrance theme, the entrance, the costume, everything's great. She looks like a megastar. I think she's perfect for TNA. She gets in the ring and she's with High End, who A lot of people have a lot of great things to say about High End. I never seen her wrestle before until this moment. I think she looks great. Everybody's saying they need to sign her. I just didn't see anything in this match that would tell me to sign her. Because she just got her ass kicked. I don't think she got any offense at all. She did, it was just a little bit. It was only a 5-minute match. I felt at times Lei Ying struggled, and she was really working hard to pander to the audience instead of kicking ass, right? She's trying to serve both masters. There were times where like she knew that the audience didn't care about what she was doing, and so she was like just kept yelling at them. It was just like it's like we can tell, and then all like nobody cares what's going on, and then the fans got into a "we want tables" chant. There was a couple of times where her offense I didn't think looked great, but then she would immediately follow up with something that really did look great. So let's just say Lei Ying Li's got some talent. She's got look. She's got star power, star quality. I think she comes across the screen as a great star. I think in the ring she's still a bit raw, and I understand. I kind of understand why they're like, look, we don't think she's ready for prime time yet, and we don't want to keep her in NXT anymore, so let's just let her go. So I think TNA is a good landing spot for her because I think she's still got room to grow. But I was impressed with just about everything. Just there was a couple moments during the match where I was like, yeah, she's not there yet. She's not there yet. Let's see. So Eric Young or Josh Alexander, Eric Young comes out and he says he wants Josh Alexander to come out. So there you go. But hold on. Before that happens, ABC duo Ace Austin and Chris Bay are shown in a heavily post-produced promo segment where they're mourn the loss of their TNA Tag Team Championships. They also talk about their Champions Clause rematch against the System. So this company loves their rematch clause. They don't have enough teams, so they just got to keep wrestling each other and then they switch the title back and forth with rematch clauses. But in comes the Hardys, Jeff and Matt. Matt makes a case for the Hardys getting a shot as well. He says whether it's ABC or the System, be aware that the Hardys are coming. And then this really weird moment where Jeff does a choo-choo train sound, and like it was just, I don't know, it was just like, what the hell is he doing? Like this brother's still on perks. I don't know what's going on with Jeff, but we get back inside the impact zone, and the walking weapon theme comes out, and he heads to the ring, and fans immediately get on his case with a "you tapped out" chant, referencing his loss at Victory Road. He talks about believing in Joe Hendry like they do after sharing the ring with him. He admits he was going down the wrong path, and a good friend gave him some advice. Josh is trying to turn babyface here, and it wasn't working. So Eric Young comes out, and then Young helps the fans come around. So he's like, the fans are not buying it, but eventually like Young comes out and like panders enough. So I believe in you. This is the walking weapon that I know. And he finally gets a walking weapon chant. I don't think it worked on TV, but the audience finally started to bite. And then they hug. They're like, okay, Josh is babyface again. Young tries to hold the ropes open for Alexander. He smiles and waves him off. Alexander goes to hold the ropes open for Young as they're exiting the ring. Young smiles and obliges, but as he goes to the rope, Alexander hits him with a German suplex, dumps him on his head. And then Sinner and Saint comes out, and then they're attacking him. And then Macklin runs out. No, Macklin ran out first, and then Sinner and Saint come out. And now we got a trio of Josh Alexander and Sinner and Saint, and they're beating the shit out of Macklin and Eric Young. I like the Josh Alexander, Sinner and Saint trio. I think this was a good way to recover for Josh after losing in back-to-back pay-per-views with his own finishing moves to the top two babyfaces in the company. He's now settling down in the mid-card as a mid-card heel. I think it's a bit beneath him, but it's what it is. I think is a nice recovery. And I think if it gets over, maybe you can kind of push him back up to that main event scene after some time. But you got to really rebuild him. You do. Next, we go to Heather Reckless. She defeats Xia Brookside. Guy, this was not good. It was not good. I didn't think this was a good match at all. They just, again, it was like, I don't know who's producing this stuff, but it was like them just taking turns pandering to the crowd. That's really all it was. They didn't mean they didn't do some good moves, but I just was not into this match. I don't know, man. Maybe it was just me. I don't know. But actions in the ring, Iceman is loudly yelling, "You suck, Brookside." The distraction leads Reckless to taking them back over on offense. And in the end, Reckless heads to the top and leaps off with rarefied air. So she's doing the swanton. She does the swanton. Ash by Elegance does the swanton. Leon Slater does a 450 swanton. And then, of course, you got Jeff Hardy doing the swanton. Everybody's doing swantons in this company. Then Ash by Elegance is backstage complaining about her feet hurting. When in comes Reckless, she gloats about doing rarefied air, but Iceman and Ash aren't impressed. They do agree she has something, but claim she needs elegance, and they have some ideas. So they're probably going to finally get to that makeover. And then, of course, the show ends with Joe Hendry versus Frankie Kazarian. All right. So let's get to the chat. Tell me where I am wrong. Let's see. Billy, I'm going to get to the news SRS after I get to the other chats about the show, because I'm going to close with the SRS news. So Love Speedball praises Leon Slater as the future backstage. Yes, I think I missed that segment here. But yeah, so at one point they get to the backstage and Leon Slater's kind of, is needing some advice, and Speedball says that you're the future, gives him a big slap on the chest, tell him to keep grinding, stuff like that, pumps him up a little bit. So I think they're definitely going to like that passing of the torch moment where Speedball is going to lose the title to Leon Slater. At least I hope that's where they're going to go. Because as we all know, Bailey is probably not going to stick around past his contract. Yeah, Bailey, the ambassador of the X Division. Yeah, I agree. So they should have moved Low-Key up years back. Okay. Let's see. Io says, I think Lei Ying Lee will be a nice addition. I do too. And then he also agrees with the internet. High end as a catch, sign high end. Okay. Lucha says, I know we're real heavy in the KO division. We need some faces, but to me, she might have been better served as a heel. Maybe she could always turn heel, but I think when you get these stars from WWE TV, they're going to be stars to the audience. And so it's natural, unless they were heel on WWE TV, it's natural to want to make them be a babyface because the crowd's going to get really into them. I just think they probably overestimated just how popular she was in NXT. And she came in, and I don't really think the crowd took to her very well. I don't. She's got some work to do. Billy says, Lei Ying Lee has a high ceiling. These are talents you need to bring in and hope you can help them reach that level. That's why I like the signing. She's still a bit raw. She's got some star power. She's got some charisma. She's got a great look. But she's a bit raw. Okay. Update on TNA show cancellations and plans moving forward. Okay. TNA, this is from Fightful Select. TNA has unfortunately been forced to cancel this week's Spartanburg shows after multiple delays. TNA went above and beyond to try to get the tapings and starting with Friday all the way to next Tuesday, as they were to serve as the build for Bound for Glory. TNA put heavy promotion into the tapings, having the Hardy Boys travel to Spartanburg early and do media. Some staff was already on scene and faced with a rough situation as power went out in the hotel they stayed at. There were no vacancies elsewhere and had to change their devices in their cars. Due to dangers of the Hurricane Helene and a lack of power at the venue they were running, the decision made was to cancel the shows. We've heard numerous discussions involving plans moving forward for TNA. Among them include the possibility of running Skyway Studios in Nashville next week, which is where they filmed during the pandemic and hosted Slammiversary 2021. The word relayed to many was that this week's episode of TV could end up being a best of Bound for Glory show. So we could be getting a best of show this week, and then possibly be taping afterwards. Okay. I think they should go live. I think they should have some balls and just go live. That's easy for me to say because it's not my money, but I think they should just go live on Thursday and do kind of what we've been saying they should do for a while. Just go live, even if it's from Skyway. Now, Skyway, you can only get 100 people in there, but and it's short notice and all that. But I think they should. I think they should just go live at least this Thursday, and then they can go to taping afterwards. But see, Billy says nothing definitive, just that Skyway is rumored. Okay. Other SRS, he said the word related to many was that this week's episode could end up being a best of Bound for Glory show. Yeah. So we'll continue we'll continue to monitor that situation. If anything breaks, I will get to Patreon, and I will do some. If I can't do audio, I'll at least write something, and I'll have an update for it on the Patreon. Okay. But that is going to do it for me this week. Thank you, everybody in the chat, for participating. And thank you for being Patreon subscribers. I greatly appreciate you. And thank you, Billy and folks, for dropping the news. I greatly appreciate that. And we'll continue to monitor this whole situation and with the TV coming up. But until next time, mahalo.